I've been actually, I guess, sort of dragging my heels on releasing the first episode of this podcast. Well, the first one, as far as the veil's edge, writing from the edge of the veil, sorry, and the reawakening of your health revolution. And I think I'm just sort of dragging my heels because I don't know where to start because I have so much that I want to share with you that I just want to start with the perfect thing. Like the one thing that will just give you an idea of exactly sort of the feel, the tone, what you might expect. Just be excited about the show itself, not just the particular topic. So the particular topic would be more of like the sort of all encompassing theme of what you're going to experience here. But I think that the trailer does a good job of that. So go back and listen to the trailer. And I'm just going to start because just something was, calling me to do this recording the other day. And it's not perfect. But it is an exploration that might sort of twig or inspire or catalyze some kind of thought within you, turn some kind of key, open some kind of Pandora's box that I consider to be full of gifts. And this whole topic is about what I'm going to be talking about is all of our parts, all of our different parts that play, that come up, for us in everyday life, and how we are made up of all these parts to become this whole, entity that we consider to be this person. So, for me, it's Carla. And so I have a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun going through this, and I'm introducing this to you because it may be a useful process for you for varying reasons. And I also, after I was done recording it, I realized that there were several things that I didn't actually get into. And one of those things was that, I referred to these inner children, and they were all sort of like wounded children. And that's actually not the case. I actually think that our the main people who we really are in the driver's seat, without the triggers and the reactivity and all of these other things that, we exile or whatever, or manage ourselves, or the things we hear that, we take on as part of our story or we think is who we are. I think that actually it's this inner child, it's not childish, okay? It's a childlike knowing that is really at the core of who we are. And so when I mention the children, those are only the wounded, the ones that come up when we're triggered in some way for their needs. Their needs have not been met. But when I talk about that, it's very different than the childlike, joyful playfulness of, like true imagination to create our own experience in this life. So it's huge. It's a huge difference. And so I don't want to not talk about that childlike nature. I don't want you to think that I'm referring to being childlike as being childish. And there was a bunch of other things that I didn't mention yet in this recording regarding relationship and how different parts can be interacting with other parts of other people, and how realizing all of these things and just being aware can really shift and help us to sort of pause and pivot and shift into an entirely different engagement with the people in our lives. And that changes everything. Like if we adjust 1 degree from where we start, we will be, light years away from it's like a totally different trajectory. And we can do that at any point. And so I probably will do part two, but I wanted to just introduce this whole idea, this whole notion. It might be something you've like explored before. It might be something completely new to you, but I wanted to introduce this to. I just wanted to talk about it and give the example of my own exploration of my own parts. And I actually have missed things, and some of the stuff is like maybe it's a mood. It's not like a whole part of myself, but or it's like just an aspect of me, or it's like almost like a different person, like acting like a different person, from instance to instance, or, that kind of thing. But I just really encourage the play. And that's really, really important here, is to play and come back to, uncovering all this stuff is really actually just clearing the layers of what is sort of like sitting on top of us, I guess, and letting the waters become clear, so that we can really see what's at the core of us, that inner light that we just know when we're children, without the concrete, the constructs, the shoulds, all of that stuff, the personality. So, anyway, I hope you enjoy this unpacking, and I'll see you on the flip side. This podcast episode is actually going to be about the different parts of ourselves. And I'm going to release this as an episode for 2 of my podcast shows. Yeah, it's cheating. But when I was thinking about it, like, where am I going to place this? It's both an exercise in the psyche and, our wellness and deep wellness, and how recognizing all of these things that I'm about to talk about helps us to put ourselves sort of back together in a way. And it's also an opportunity for some really juicy writing of like characters, and get more into depth about how to write those characters that have layers and meaning, and aspects of them that make them complex and interesting, like each of us are. And also, the healing that can come from what I'm about to talk about as well, and the play, and the healing through writing. So I'm going to release this in 2 of my podcast shows. And I'm not sure if it's going to be called Naming My Parts, or My Parts, My People, or something that's going to have people understand that we're talking about characters here. So I guess you'll have clicked on whatever title that may have been. All right, so my entry to this topic is a question for you. So, or something to contemplate. And that is, have you ever said, part of me feels this way, right? Or the other part wants to do this, or that wasn't like me, or I act like a different person with my grandma, right? As opposed to like with my friends or my children, at work, at school, wherever we might be, whatever roles we might be playing. Have you ever acted like a different person in different roles? And I would assume that everybody says yes. Like, of course I do. I'm not the same with my grandma as I am when I'm out with my friends on the weekend, right? And we're really used to this. Like, we use that language all the time. Like, part of me wanted to do that, or part of me felt this way about that, but another part was conflicting, or another part silenced that part that wanted to just rage and scream, And so this is active. It's an active part of our humanity and of our human psyche, to have these different parts active at all times, right? And one person that I had come across over the years is a man named Richard Schwartz. And he explains how this is so, and why, and helps people to explore this through a system he calls internal family system. The internal family systems. Or some people call it parts work. And I'm just going to read this definition of what internal family systems is from the website and I believe it's the official IFS website. Okay, so it's ifs-institute.com. And I'm going to read this before we get into some fun play with this, because what we're going to do is take a little like tour of my own parts. And I hope you have fun with this. So first with the definition. Okay, so IFS is a transformative tool that conceives of every human being as a system of protected and wounded inner parts led by a core self. We believe the mind is naturally multiple and that is a good thing. Just like members of a family, inner parts are forced from their valuable states into extreme roles within us. Self is in everyone. It can't be damaged. It knows how to heal. IFS is frequently used as an evidence-based psychotherapy, helping people heal by accessing and healing their protective and wounded inner parts. IFS creates inner and outer connectedness by helping people first access their self, and he capitalizes self, okay? Or they capitalize self, and from that core come to understand and heal their parts. But IFS is much more than a non pathologizing evidence based psychotherapy to be used in a clinical setting, which appeals to me. Okay, so that appeals to me because I'm going to be playing with that just in a moment. It is also a way of understanding personal and intimate relationships and stepping into life with the 8 C's: confidence, calm, compassion, courage, creativity, clarity, curiosity, and connectedness. So they go on to say that professionals from many different backgrounds, such as but not limited to body workers, legal meditation, school administration, legal mediation. It's not funny. School administration, life coaches, and religious leaders may utilize IFS to inform and guide their work. Okay, so I said we were going to have some fun with this. Okay, so and I don't want to get too hung up on the terms and the discipline of IFS and parts work. I actually am just going to call it, working with our parts. But I want to have a really fun trip through my many, many parts to give you some examples of how we can just identify these different aspects of ourselves with the intention of integrating them, right? Because I don't think the intention is not to reject or push aside or silence any of these parts, because they're all there for different reasons. They all serve a purpose. And we'll get into that in just a moment. But the point is to integrate them and know when they're coming up and when are in the driver's seat. So I have this like analogy I use to explain how this is going on, in the psyche, and that is of a bus, right? So you are on a bus and there's all these different parts of you on this bus. And I kind of like consider it like a bus like full of like, and they could be unruly, but a mixed bag of, adults and children and elders and, like people that, are acting up, and some are looking out the window, and some are trying to drive, and some are, just agitating others or poking others, and some are just kind of sitting back, being silent or wanting to disappear or not knowing where to sit. Like all kinds of things. Some are observant, some are chatty, some are quiet. And so there are all these different parts of you, all these different parts and characters in this bus. And then come up, different roles, right? So in parts work, they talk about like the protectors, the guardians, the managers, right? These are the ones that's like, bring order, to whatever's happening on that bus, right? And then there are the exiles, right? The parts of us that we don't want to see and that we might not really be able to integrate, right? Not, we reject, the parts of us that, want to, like drive the bus into the ditch, like that are angry, that are reactive, that come up when we are threatened, our survival's threatened. And all of these different parts, the ones that I've mentioned so far, protect the sort of like the ones that seem to be weaker or broken or traumatized or childlike, our children, our inner children that feel, wounded or neglected or unseen, unheard, unloved, all of those different things that we learn about in, early childhood trauma. And so I'd like to talk about trauma deeper in another podcast episode, but for now we're just going to leave it at that. So all of these different like parts are kind of in this bus, and the driver it's up to the driver what happens, like, are we going to go on a tour? Are we going to go down this road? Are we going to go the bumpy road? Are we going to go to the one that says dead end? Where are we going to go in this bus? And what sights are we going to see? So really the true self is the driver. I'll get to that in just a sec, or should be the driver. But some of those parts take the wheel at certain times. So, and what's really interesting is that we can change between these parts rather rapidly. Like it just reminds me of how my cousin, who's a really funny guy, I was visiting him in the hospital. He was in the hospital for about a week, and we just had this lovely conversation, and he was talking about his little son, and how his son can go through this wide range of emotion within like 10 seconds of like, whoa, like being so excited, and then like his mouth opens and his face opens with all this emotion, and then it's like he's excited, and then all of a sudden he's like coming down and he's crying, and he's like, and he goes through all of this, range of emotion and expression in a matter of seconds, and I don't think it's only children who can and do this, right? He just had me laughing. So we can do this too. Like I see myself, like especially if I'm in a reactive state and not aware of who's trying to take the wheel here and why. That happens to me too. It's like I am Zen, Carla. Well, I call her Zenish, right? She's Zenish. She's not always completely Zen. And I could be her and just feel like nothing's gonna shake me. I am the tree, regardless of how the wind blows. I'm the mountain. I'm so just in touch with myself. And then there's a trigger. Someone says something, and I'm like right over into like wildcat, warrior mama, depending on the situation in an instant. And so these changes can come and can happen internally. The key is, I think, to recognize it, witness it, allow that reactive part, the manager, the controller, the protector, to say, okay, I got this. I got this. We don't need to overreact. We don't need to even sometimes even protect. It depends on whether or not that there is actually a threat, or if it's just a trigger, a memory, tripping the wire. Okay, so I'm going to go through some more parts. And I've got this part, I don't know, I've temporarily called her him, Merlin. And so, okay, I want to be very clear. Like, this is not the Disney version of Merlin. And not this is the Disney version, sorry, the Disney version of Merlin. And it's not the serious version of Merlin, like the Order of Merlin, the wizards, or any of their incarnations. Okay, so it's like this part is sort of like melded with this other part that I thought I was going to call Crazy Brain Carla or Crazy Brain C. But it's more fun and it's more apt to just like consider this part of me that has a busy brain, like as Merlin, like this sort of the Disney version where Merlin's got like all these different things going on, magical, like whimsical even, books everywhere. There's lots going on in this brain, like kind of like the Nutty Professor kind of. Where her office is whimsically full and, like I said, messy, but not like where she can't find anything. It's all about discovery. And if she can't find anything, well, there's a reason why it won't be found. And when it needs to be found, it will be there. And so this is this part of me that I kind of like to consider to be Merlin. And there's a little bit of Mad Madam Mim in there, a little bit of orneriness in the orderlinessness. Okay. And here comes Giggles. Okay, so this is Giggles. You're hearing Giggles. And Giggles is sort of like really goofball. Like, I mean, actually off the rails at times, like where there's this, it intersects with Merlin in a way, but with an added element of goofiness. Like, so this part of me comes out in a spirit of like just sheer joy and joy in the brilliance. Like, it's like it allows her to go out of convention and be free. Like, and it's like a daftness that comes from brilliance, if that makes any sense. Not to overanalyze or intellectualize, but really enjoy life and be fun and free. And it's like where all these other like little tinier aspects of myself come out that my family has dubbed Fire Marshal Bill. Okay, so this is the part of me, like this is that they call me Fire Marshal Bill because I often like I'll go start cooking something in the kitchen, and my life is set up so that I have my Zen den office, just off the living room. So I'll cross through the living room and I'll go and start something or continue something or play some music or whatever in my office, and then I go back and forth as I cook. Like my life is a dance that way. And so sometimes they'll leave it on, and they always think I'm forgetting about it. I'm going to burn the place down. They'll stir it and say, "Mom," or "Carla, I've I've stirred this thing for you." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know it's going to get done." It's like this full on, surrender into the flow and knowing that you're going to get back to it. You don't have to think about it too much. You're going to circle back. Nothing's going to burn down. And also, there's this Mr. Magoo who is like doesn't see well, a little bit of a sloppy driver, that kind of thing. That's been like this term of endearment for this part of me as well. Knowing it's going to be all right. I don't have to, you know, like be perfect. There's this like goofy aspect and this, these traits that are fun, and letting go of all of that other stuff, this rigidity, this have to and need to, and there's Wreck-It Ralph too, like, and that's actually there's a sloppiness to Giggles. And Wreck-It Ralph is like when when I'm just like not that careful. And I actually am quite careful a lot of times, but sometimes I'm just feeling like, man, the other day I was like, I gotta get out of this section of the bookstore because I am gonna break something. Like I was like, ooh, fumbling, like, oops, like I was with my daughter and I was like, yeah, I gotta get out of the part where there's any glass. Ah, fun. All right. So there's Kitty, who is really like sensual and sexual and naughty. And there's Fozzie, who is this like cute, cuddly, lovable, soft, but still like there's a little bit of sexiness in Fozzie. Like you just want to hug her. And I feel that Fozzie, a lot, and especially brought out in certain situations. And then there's this warrior mama bear, in me, or just mama, like you're safe here, you're protected here, you have this space to be cubs, and to play, in this like space that I am patrolling for you, right? I'm not like hyper alert. Mama bears aren't like, they're not skittish. They are aware and capable of protecting as well as, being like a safe place. And so there's Mouth, who gets silenced actually quite a lot, especially from the librarian. And so Mouth is like this loquacious thinker, okay? And it can morph into like, where you might need like to employ the use of Lachesis homeopathy. And if you're a homeopath and know homeopathy, you'll get what I'm saying. If she hogs the stage, right? Oh, and she can, like, she feels like she overshadows others, and can start to feel bad about taking or talking, or if the talking is due to a trauma response. So sometimes it's like a nervous reaction to feeling either silenced or needing to fill the space of, an uncomfortable space, or not feeling understood. And so those are all the little children that I'm going to get to in a moment, that is being protected by mouth, or mouth is trying to give voice to those parts, right? And then mouth is often silenced by one of the managers, right? Like one of the, like either the narrator, is going to come and, like chatter its way through. It's part of mouth, I guess, but the narrator's more like this internal mental chatter, assessing, over assessing, creating story and meaning. But it can be really intrusive. I don't know if you've got a narrator, but man, I'm like, I love it, because I think that all of us have this aspect of ourselves that is always trying to make meaning of things, and turn our experience into story. And so the story actually is like this blueprint print of memory, or a path maybe forward. But sometimes it just is, it doesn't allow us to just be in the moment. It's always like, recreating, or it's like when you have a photograph, like you have a phone and you want to take photographs of everything and post it on social media at all times. Like you're never in the moment, because you're always thinking about recording the moment, explaining the moment, right? And so it doesn't give a lot of space for just being, right? She doesn't give a lot of space for just being at times, when she's over assessing in that, that mode. And yeah, disrupting the quiet, shh. I'm like, shh, 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 narrator, just be quiet. And sometimes when the narrator is taking over, you know, I go outside, and you got to watch the fire, light, make a fire in the fire pit and watch the fire. Take a walk, and allow things to clear. Like, just be in nature. Chop wood, carry water, do the dishes without, rumination. Just kind of enjoy the warm, soapy suds of the water. That's how I sort of calm my narrator, and know that I don't have to record everything. It's okay if some things go, because it's never really gone. And that narrator can actually over narrate when there's this fear involved of, like, not being able to make sense of things, or missing out on something significant. Okay, so I mentioned wildcat. Wildcat comes out when threatened. And wildcat is more, it's like different than mama bear. There's like no wisdom in wildcat. Like, she'll scratch your eyes out. She comes out when there are certain people or instances that are extreme, in life, and feeling unsafe and attacked. And she's just going to protect at all costs. She's like beyond warrior. Like, she's like pure primal survival instinct. And she's violent and raging in this shadow, and it's like this like, bring it on, I'ma kill you kind of like energy. Like, don't even get near me, because you're gonna come at me with that. It's me or you. Yeah, she needs to be a little tamed sometimes. And she doesn't come out that often, but when she do, watch out. I also have like another, a couple other parts of me that are really like quite intense. And, this rocker, gothic Carla kind of drummer girl intensity. And that one can be very like empowering and fun, like, yeah, let's play with this. Let's get dark and, wear dark clothes and just rebel and play the drums and dance like, to like heavy music. And it was, sometimes she just, if she's in the driver's seat for too long, she exhausts us. I get exhausted because it can be too overstimulating, and other things, need to come to lighten things up, like giggles, for instance. Or just zen, just, okay, had enough of that outward aggressive kind of rebellious nature, and I'm just going to take it down a little, you know. And then there's like lighthouse mums, she's a visionary. She brings people together and shines her light. She encourages others to, the light in others. She hears others. She makes others feel safe, and feels the hearing, like witnessing and looking people in the eye. And she's calm and nurturing. And she comes up from a space of like not needing, but utter giving. She's a lover and a safe space. And I feel like, she's very much part of who that core self me is. But I'm going to get to that in a second. So there's this like, other aggressive one that's like I've called bitch. It's not a nice word. And it might be like judgy on that part of myself that I'm exiling, right? So this one is like really judgmental and intolerant of others, and eye roller internally, frustrated, annoyed with others, impatient with others. It's all about the other. She's disconnected from the other with the judgmental eye. And she's someone who I've spent a lot of time integrating. At first, really actually realizing that she was there and that she wasn't me, and I didn't want to be her. But I understand that she comes up when I am intolerant with other processes. And I am trying to skip to the end of, illumination, when the whole beauty of it is the process itself. And refusing to see other people in myself. Because she thinks she's more evolved. She thinks she knows. And she needs to just be okay with not knowing and not having to know. And that's all good. Joe Crow is one with nature. Joe Crow actually came from a character in This Hour Has 22 Minutes, a Canadian show that pokes fun, and it's a humorous like comedy about like Canadian politics. And I don't know if it's still going, but we used to watch the original with the original cast, and man, they were brilliant. And there was this character in there called Joe Crow, and it's tongue in cheek, kind of like where this character was actually a woman, Kathy Jones, playing Joe Crow, who was male, and just being in nature and speaking this like language of like one with nature, and always outside. And there's this confidence in Joe Crow and this connection to nature, and unabashedly speaking about this connection to nature to others, and lets go of the constructs of civilization, like speaks to the trees and the animals, kind of like a lone wolf, and also contemplative, like but verbally speaking these contemplations, as little bits of wisdom. I got a Joe Crow in there. I love Joe. And the librarian, like I mentioned, like the librarian's always saying, shh, you're talking too much. You're expressing too much. You're too loud. You're too this. You're too that. You're too much. And this is how I exile my chatty parts. And not to others. I don't have a librarian that's actually expressing to others. That's an internal manager that is quieting all the children and all the other adult parts of myself that are too much, because the librarian doesn't want us to be embarrassed. The librarian listens to other people telling me in my life that I need to not overshadow other people. If I shine too bright or if I'm too loud, it takes away from others. So that's the librarian making sure that I don't do that. Exiling, the loquacious mouth, right? Or other parts of me that really are just wanting to express. And so I've also got Rabbit, who, like, oh my gosh, it's a kind of a little like the goofball, giggles in a way, but Rabbit has no joy in it. And Rabbit gets really unfocused when she's working, it's like this, it's a fear-based part that works fast and works out like, the body fast and like wants to get done this and like, and misses the process entirely, like trying to cram all into one day, skips over the details. She feels like she's being chased like all the time. And I'll tell you, there's sometimes, again, like I slip in and out of these parts and in and out of like ways of being or experiencing life because of that, where it's like like time stands still and time is timeless in this Zenish state. And then I can also slip into this underlying current of feeling always being chased. And that's also like 100% trauma based, like where things have happened in the past that, Rabbit has had to take over or feels like she's had to take over and run. Like, get it done. There's a deadline. If you don't do this, so and so's going to be hurt. So and so's going to suffer. You're going to suffer. You're not going to have money. You're not going to have comfort. You're not going to have stability if you don't keep running, staying ahead. And Rabbit's really good at staying ahead, Rabbit's often like really efficient actually, unless it gets too out of control and then there's just unfocused and, too much overstimulation, overwhelm. And then other parts are able to come up that are not so nice. Maybe even wildcat actually. But the cool thing is that Rabbit's pretty calm these days. And, but she's still ready for the race, just in case, in case there is something to run from or run to. And it's Scrappy. Okay, so Scrappy gets brought out by like another part of actually my husband, who I call Slappy. Slappy's really annoying. And like, it's like two little kids like playing, like just bugging each other. Slappy's really annoying. Scrappy just is like, I'm feeling really scrappy. I'm gonna respond to this part of you. It's like two different parts, like interacting, and it's super annoying for our kids actually when we get that because I'm just like get lost, and he's like bug bug bug. It's a kid on a playground, bugging the other kid that they have a crush on, like that kind of energy. And then, okay, so I'm going to call this other one Fatty, and that sounds so judgmental. And look at that, exiling Fatty who overeats and she's not pretty. She doesn't feel pretty. She's not interesting or important or smart enough. She feels ugly. She's self-loathing. She feels guilty all the time, no matter what she does. She's ashamed and self-destructive. And, this mantra is like, I can't. She disappears. She wants to disappear, like, especially because if she doesn't feel good about herself, she doesn't want anybody else to see her, especially like running into someone from high school. That's like everybody's worst nightmare, is to be in like your bunny slippers and like, just overcoming like a cold and like, you're like the worst you've ever been running into someone that you knew from the past. And she's like the adult version of Worm, who I'll introduce in just a moment. And she's pretty new as of late. And actually, now she's sort of integrated. She came up very strongly for me over the last year. And then she's very quiet now. She's pretty content. She doesn't really need to show up a lot anymore, which is really interesting. I've got Pretty, or maybe I might call her Pet. And she always wants to show up perfect, beautiful. She's vain. Not in a way like I'm, like, I don't know, like repulsively vain, offensively vain, but more like concerned about how she looks. Even though she's very low maintenance, she wants to be more like, this like natural beauty, right? And she's more like one of my inner children, or like my inner teen. She wants everyone to like her and be helpful and cooperative. And she's Miss Congeniality. She's the fixer, the organizer. She's helpful. She cares for people, but she's always perceived as being acceptable, likable, pretty, nice, the pet, the teacher's pet, the favorite in the family, the one that's always, you can depend on her because she is pleasant and doesn't rock the boat. And then we got Mr. Bojangles. Mr. Bojangles. This is like a lot of this happy clown in me, this giggles, maniacally goofy at times, like Mr. Magoo's in there, Fire Marshal Bill, all of those personas that are light and happy. But Mr. Bojangles is sort of like the sad part of it. It's not without the actual like authentic joy of giggles. Mr. Bojangles comes up when they're trying to be giggles, trying to make everything good and happy, trying to make everything and everyone feel better by making a fool of herself, right? And so that looks like a little daft at times. And, like the forgetting on the stove and like all those sorts of things. It's comically incompetent, right? So we can laugh at her. And it breaks this ice of like tension and hurting and pain and, like really down energy in a space, because it's like this sad dancing clown distracts everybody from it. It's like that whole concept of tears of a clown, or dancing and clowning so that everything is all right. It's like Bojangles is actually like a little bit desperate to make everything better. And yeah, so that's Mr. Bojangles. And Boss Lady, okay, so this is like the leader, Carla. I mean, I have a little sign that says Boss Lady that my daughter bought me. And this like person is a leader and capable and a builder and a problem solver and tenacious and workaholic. And, there's this shadow, right, aspect of the workaholic, and obsessive, right, competitive, commanding. And she takes charge and can be a know-it-all at times, but not always. Boss lady sometimes is just like, just taking charge, like, and confident. But in this shadow aspect, she's, know-it-all and judgy and pushy, overbearing, and doesn't listen well when fed up or impatient. It's just like, now, man, I don't even care. Like, I don't want your opinion. I don't want to cooperate. I just want to get this done because I don't have time for the shit. That's boss lady. So, and some of like some of these things come out, like when we're imbalanced. And, there's another thing, like if I would go like to the extreme of like this competitive nature, would be like this a competitive attention whore, but that only comes out when I'm faced with integrating or finding a place within like cliques and groups that seem to be excluding other people. Right. And this is like, I guess, like a teenage aspect of myself. And I see it come up. I'm like, ooh, where's that coming from? And feed that some other way, or not put so much stock into this whole situation in the first place, right? Okay, so I'm going to go through the kids. This is getting a little long. I hope you're enjoying it. I don't know. I hope you are. the kids, the little ones, that we're trying to protect, all these managers and protectors and guides, some of them are guides, some of them are wise, so the word, like worm, I call her worm. And I don't know if anybody knows this, like this rhyme. Nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I'm going to the garden to eat worms. And I feel like an overwhelming like compassion for worm, but this is the part of me, like it's not attractive when it comes up in an adult or even a child, actually, because you can have compassion. I have compassion for a worm that doesn't feel not good enough or worthy, or doesn't feel good enough and unworthy. I feel sorry for herself. And that's the aspect of it. Was like, wait a minute. Where's that going to get you if you're always feeling sorry for yourself? And so the protectors might come up for worm, and, might get angry, and wildcat might come up when something is said to trigger this feeling of, not good enough or worthy. No, you don't love me, you're rejecting me, you're hurting me. And so wildcat, can come up, and you see how that can be really like a mess. So I've been accepting worm and loving worm, but also saying, worm, I got this. You don't need to feel sorry for yourself. And then there's Rumpeldum. Rumpeldum, who is like neglected and dirty and feels dumb and is really shy. And Ghost disappears. She makes herself small, invisible, really. But she resents having to be small. She doesn't like being a ghost. She doesn't like having to be small so that, her mom, let's say, doesn't react to her anything. Like, she doesn't want to rock the boat. She just wants to disappear. It's the child aspect of the adult who wants to disappear. And tend her. I thought that was kind of clever. Tend her. And she fawns, but she's a bit more needy. She really wants to be loved. Really wants to be loved. And then that can bring up those adult aspects of the competitive Carla or the judgy Carla and all those kinds of things. Because tend her doesn't feel loved, doesn't feel seen or heard or wanted. And then honey sweet is that little one, like I think of myself as a little one with this afro I used to have, and the whole family loved her. And I don't think the whole family feels the same way about me as they did when I was honey sweet, And I see all these little ones and I love them all, right? But like, what kind of mother can I be? A friend, or what kind of partner? How do I shine my light, and how do I serve if it's always from a space of all these little ones, where they're fearful and they feel small and they're lacking and they're not good enough and they're dependent on the outside world to adjust to my needs rather than alchemizing with my innate and intrinsic inner power. This like genius that we all have but often forget. So the practice is to love and accept all of these little ones, these inner children, these tendencies, in us all, and say, I've got you. I've got you, and you are loved, and all of these different things. You are enough, and I'm going to shine my light, because if I'm worm, I'm going to hide. If I'm ghost, I'm going to disappear. If I'm tender, I'm going to be needy. If I'm honey sweet, I'm going to always hope that I am liked rather than speaking my truth. If I'm rumpeldum, I'm like disheveled and not able to just kind of adult, and take things into my own hands. So again, love them all. And have compassion, see that others have parts too. Now that is really cool. And so each of these parts, like, it's like they live within us. They're like complex characters in a well-written book. And if we understand them, we love them all. Like even the villains. Have you had any villains in books that you love? Like you're like, whoa. Or you've learned to love through their character arc and the things that happen in their lives and the things they've learned and the ways they've expanded and grown. Not changed into someone more likable, but someone you understood better. There's a huge difference. And sometimes especially the villains. And we can play it out in our minds, right? Like by doing parts work, we can play with it in our minds and not act it out. We don't have to act out. We can play with it in our minds and have and take out the seriousness, right? It's like doing things in the dreamscape. But we create something from wholeness, like putting that all back together. Or realizing that we're already whole in the first place. So we recognize our multiplicity rather than reject it. We don't consider ourselves broken. We see different aspects of the whole, right? And this leads to something other than shame and expectation and conditioning and exiling and rejecting ourselves. Because we can see it. We can be more brave and courageous and look in the mirror. So which one is you? This is like the question I ask myself. Which one is me? Who am I then? Well, you're none. You're all of them, but you're none of them. You're all of them, but none of them. And they've been created in service to you. And when you're balanced and like you're in harmony, you're feeling like just a sense of like, I am here, I am, that's when you're in the driver's seat of the bus. So then I've tried to name my true me, who am I then? Which one is me? Again, all of them and none of them. And I've named her Songbird or the Weaver, even Lucy, because Lucy, in that movie Lucy, she just like absorbs everything and doesn't have to sort of stop and think and whatever. It's just like everything comes together. Carla the Creator, I like to call her that too. Try not sounding, like having this God complex, but we are all creator. We create our experience and we choose who we let to drive the bus. And who's driving the bus is the one that knows all of that. So I think she's my baseline. And Songbird is also about voice and singing and the sound is at the beginning of creation. And this is the unique genius that is me, this expressive, insightful, discerning, wise me, which is in all of you, by the way, and learns through all. So it's like this ultimate creative flow in love at all times with everything and everyone. It sounds like, how do you do that? But it really is a sensation, not just feelings that we jump on this roller coaster, but a sensation that is just insatiable. And when I am making decisions and contemplating, things that come from that space, it's not out of arrogance. It's confident. It's humble yet divine. And this person, this me, this self, is considering and accepting all the others, all of the others, all the other parts, in flow with life in my own life. And it's the light aspect of all my parts. Yeah. So integrating this that's actually really simple. And it sounds like, is it? Well, okay, here's this. So when you're triggered or some stuff is coming up, like you're really struggling with reactions, or when that tantruming child just needs a time out, time out. Just sit for a minute, time out, cool off. Or the manager needs to step aside and let you speak. Like, man, I have something to say. Don't filter me. Don't worry, I got this. I'm not going to say anything that's going to get us kicked out of the herd. And if it does, we're going to be fine, right? When you are identify with one of these parts speaking or acting on your behalf or through you, ask, okay, here's the question to ask. Who is it that is trying to grab the wheel right now? Or who is it that has taken complete control of the bus? And then the next question is, what do they need? What do they need? Because you can give it to them. You don't need the outside world or perfect relationship or someone to say the right thing to you. Or you don't need everything to change outside of yourself. You can give yourself what you need. And the answer to that question is really another question. What do they always need? And I would say it is, I see you, I thank you, and I've got this. All right. So, depending on where or why you're listening to this, you can explore this further in relation to your own inner cacophony turned chorus. It's the conductor. Maybe that is what I should call my inner genius, my unique self, my true self, the conductor. Maybe because the conductor can tell when one note needs to play and another doesn't, one's flat and discordant and creating a lot of noise, right? We want to make music. We want to be in harmony. And then we can become in harmony with the other people that we relate to, right? We're in relationship with. So people who are listening to my Writing from the Edge of the Veil podcast, you can go and write these parts as journal entries, as characters, as scenes and scenarios. And dance with them, witness them, understand them, and play. Please remember to play. And for those of you listening to my Your Health Revolution podcast, well, let's do the same. It's the same thing. You can journal it, you can write it, you can express it. You can just think about it. Just stop and think, who is this? What do they need? I see you, I hear you, I thank you, and I've got this. All right, so thanks for being on this very long journey with me, and I hope you get a lot out of it. And I would love to hear some of the things that you come up with, maybe some names or references and parts of you that you're just slowly letting come to the surface and identifying them and integrating them. And thank you for playing. For more information about my individual and group coaching, on-demand programs, Coaching the Coach's training, and my Veil's Edge fantasy series of books, please see the show notes for my links to my websites, social media, and other stuff. Do consider supporting my work on Patreon. Be sure to follow the show, follow me at Coach Carla Atherton on Instagram, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, whatever avenue is best for you to stay up to date with new episodes. Please note that this podcast is not a source for diagnosis, therapy, or treatment, but is the opinion of the host and guests. The intention is to support and inspire. Each person's health is their own responsibility. May you, your family, and the people you serve be well. Thank you for playing.